Hi friends, welcome back. Today I wanted to give you two mini reviews about some movies that you can go and see with your family on Christmas this holiday season. Both of these movies are fairly different from one another, however, they have some pretty incredible actors in the lead roles, and I would say that they remind me of a lot of the films that we used to get, some really mature adult dramedies that we try to get some of them out each year, but they don't always really work out, or people are just not interested in these types of films. But I'm really happy to see that they are starting to pick back up. We've had a few of them come out this year, and so I really hope that that works out and continues in future years. Okay, first one that I'm diving into is Bradley Cooper's Is This Thing On? This is his third directorial feature after A Star is Born and Maestro, and I think a lot of people will be very surprised to see him doing this type of film just because it's not a Oscar bait type film. It's not this big grand drama, but as I mentioned earlier, it is this very grounded adult comedy about a couple that's been together for 26 years deciding that it's time to call it quits, and so they decide to separate. And Will Arnett, who plays our lead character, he stumbles into a comedy club one night and just kind of decides to go for it, and he never would have expected that that kind of would have opened up his eyes and led him to pursue something that he is quite passionate about. I find this film to be very endearing. I find it to be so mature. I really like the way that Bradley is able to showcase this relationship that, in the beginning it seems like they shouldn't be a couple anymore, but as they spend this time apart and they grow and work on themselves, they do ultimately realize that it's not the marriage that didn't necessarily work out. It's just kind of how they lost themselves in the process, and they didn't really bother focusing on themselves or thinking about how it might impact their partner. And so I think that is a very, very mature lesson for people to learn. I think it's very applicable to a lot of people's lives, and especially those who are in relationships for really long times. So I was a huge fan of this film. When it comes to the films that this really reminded me of, I kind of have like an endless list of this just because, again, we used to make movies like this in the past. When you think about films about couples breaking up that are kind of more comedy focused, I'm thinking about The Breakup. I'm thinking about Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I think that Will Arnett gives a very vulnerable performance here. I love him from Arrested Development. I think he is a really funny comedian who never ceases to make me laugh. But I really like the times when he's kind of able to go in a bit of a different direction. And yes, he is able to be funny in this film. I mean, it's inevitable if you're going to be playing a stand-up comic that you'll have a few jokes here and there, but I really enjoy and appreciate this mix that he's able to bring out, both of the funny goofy guy side and also just the guy who is, lost and doesn't really know what to do and how to keep his family together. Reminds me a little bit of Silver Linings Playbook, which stars his director, Bradley Cooper, but just this man who is trying to move on from a, I suppose, toxic part of himself, and especially a relationship. I found so many similarities with that. I find him being able to dip a little bit back into his BoJack Horseman days as he's really pontificating about life and where he goes from there and how he can work on himself. And almost this idea of somebody being able to heal through the art of stand-up comedy. Jenny Slate's Obvious Child is a pretty good movie, and one that I did think of quite a lot, especially as he is bringing in his real life on stage and kind of allowing him to process a lot of these emotions that maybe he isn't able to in his regular words and in his mind. This film has the wonderful Laura Dern in it, who I'm really happy isn't just kind of sidelined and treated as like, oh, the ex who is just kind of there and is kind of mean and all that stuff. She kind of goes through her own process here. This is someone who used to be a professional volleyball player, and she gave that up, and that, without maybe her really recognizing it and talking about it, also very heavily contributed to a lot of the problems that these two have in their marriage. And now that she and him are not together, she also goes on her own journey about rediscovering her love for volleyball, trying to get back into the game in some new ways. And that ultimately really helps her too, because she realizes that yeah, I kind of became a bit of a shell of the person I was when I gave up this thing that I really love. And that's another thing that I think this film does really great. It just kind of allows people to confront a lot of their own issues that they may be having in life, whether it's you lose yourself because you gave up something, or you just find yourself drowning in all these responsibilities of being a parent and being a partner and just trying to keep up with everything. I think that Bradley Cooper really does a great job handling all of this in this movie. And again, I think ultimately people who have been in relationships for a long time, maybe people who just kind of got out of a long relationship, I think they'll be able to really do a little bit of soul searching and digging into their own lives just to see maybe what they can do differently, or maybe what they need to focus on in order to more or less try to avoid the fates of these two characters. This film seems like a much lighter marriage story, which gives you another opportunity to enjoy a great Laura Dern performance, one which won her an Oscar. But yeah, that's another film that I really was thinking quite a lot about. Bradley Cooper has a really fun supporting role in this film as a character named Balls, which should tell you everything you need to know. But I was kind of thinking about him and his career and the many, many, many Oscar nominations that he has racked up at this point in his career. I think he ultimately is going to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Performance because, as evidenced by this film and Licorice Pizza, I think he brings a lot of wonder and delight when we get him in little small doses. Like every time he showed up in this film, I was just like, all right, what is Balls gonna say? What new crazy thing is gonna come out of his mouth? And people remember that. People love those types of characters and actors. So mark my words, I think this is how Bradley will eventually win an Oscar. I've seen some people on Letterboxd not really being quite as high on this film. That's okay. I quite enjoyed it. I ultimately give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. First time I watched it, I gave it 4 out of 5. I think I was just like so locked in and zoned in. But on the second rewatch, I kind of lowered it just a little bit. There are some parts here or there that may be a little sloppy, maybe not as great directed, but overall, I was really happy with this film. A great effort from Bradley Cooper. I really would like to see him doing some more of these films because, again, they are so beloved. And I'm excited that he kind of ventured into this territory. Switching gears now to Song Sung Blue. This film is opening on Christmas Day. It's got a pretty great two-hander powerhouse team with Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson. Although I kind of have a bit of more critiques for this one. So these two play two down-on-their-luck musicians from Milwaukee who eventually, when they come together, they form a Neil Diamond tribute band. And it kind of takes Milwaukee by storm. People love Neil Diamond, especially in this era. And boy, do they love Sweet Carolinas. I feel like a lot of people still do. And as these two are really on an amazing momentum of success, tragedy strikes for this family in a number of different ways that is both shocking to us as audience members and also to them, and it really kind of threatens to derail all of this success and all of the joy that they've built up to that point. I think this film is going to be a huge crowd pleaser for families. I can't necessarily say that I don't see anybody not being able to see this film. One, because of the great stars. Two, because it's about Neil Diamond. Three, because it's just kind of like a wholesome story. And making it even more crazy is the fact that it is very much a true story. This film is based on a 2008 documentary of the same name, Song Sung Blue, that tells the story of this real Milwaukee couple, that they became such big members of their community. People wanted to support them. People love hearing that these family units are doing something that they're passionate about, and I think that's where this film really does shine. There are some really great moments where the band's getting together, they're playing, they sound wonderful. We shouldn't be surprised, Kate Hudson has showed us her vocal abilities in films such as Nine, Hugh Jackman has showed his vocal abilities in films such as Les Mis, The Greatest Showman. They've got the two great stars for this, and also both of them are just so very charismatic, so it's easy to kind of fall in line with this film and really want to see more and root for these two people. Hugh Jackman plays Mike, this Vietnam veteran who is sober. He's trying to stay sober. He will make any stage his arena because he has big dreams. Marty Supreme would be very, very proud of him for that. While Kate plays Claire, this hairdresser who also has these big dreams of show business, and neither one of them was really able to make it work in maybe the traditional way, but they find a way to come together, bring their vocal talents, and make this Neil Diamond tribute band, and it's just cute to see it. Does the storytelling get too cheesy? Yes, absolutely, definitely. But you know, again, people sound really good in this film, so it's not hard to kind of bop your head around to all of these different Neil Diamond hits. As I said, tragedy does strike this family, and in its first iteration, it impacts Claire in a very, very devastating way. And the turn that Kate Hudson is able to make from this otherwise very cheerful person to someone who is so angry, is struggling emotionally. It is mentioned that Claire has had some mental health struggles in the past, and those really, really come into fruition here. It's just really incredible to see all of the different ways that she kind of becomes a shell of the person that she once was, and how it impacts not only herself, but her family, and this whole big grand idea that they have. I think she does a really great job in this film and all of the different aspects that she's asked to capture this woman. I do also think that it's here where the screenplay begins to falter. I think that Craig Brewer, the writer and director of the film, was just always trying to rush us to get into the next time that they're performing some Neil Diamond song, rather than really sitting and exploring some of these different issues that are being brought up, one of which is Claire's mental health struggles, where apparently they just kind of go away after she checks into a facility, and the next scene she's coming out and it's all good. Another thing is with some of Mike's own health issues. They keep being brought up, but then there's never anything that is addressed with them, and neither does he do anything to address them. So it's just kind of why are we doing this? I will say that the most egregious example of this has to deal with Claire's daughter, who has some news of her own, and that is wrapped up in, I don't know, 2.5 minutes pretty much, and that one was truly a whoa, why did this happen? I think these are some common things that I saw and noticed in the first act of this film too, very much Claire and Mike meeting and falling in love just kind of happens after 1 hour session, but I will excuse it just because I enjoy the performances a little bit more, and it's charming, so I feel like it can be a little exaggerated in that moment. The third act of this film really suffers from tonal whiplash, in my opinion. Again, tragedy strikes this family, and how it's handled is very much ramped up for dramatic effect and just kind of keeps dragging out this inevitable conclusion. I also feel like the film doesn't necessarily know when exactly to end. Ultimately, I gave this film 2.5 stars out of 5. I think it's fine. Again, the performances do a lot for me, and I think it's very easy to be on board with the film when you've got two incredible heavyweight talents, but just a lot of these really clumsy, weird errors and mistakes in the screenplay itself and the storytelling just kind of kept making me scratch my head and wonder, what are we doing here? Anyway, those are two films that you guys can check out this holiday season in theaters. I hope you are able to watch lots of movies, whether it's these two or any array of films, as I have all right here on my shelf. So make sure you are spending these few days off with friends and family and plenty of movies and popcorn. Thanks everybody for watching. Happy holidays, and I'll see you here next time.